Greetings, family. Welcome to Math and Science of Slavery series, part number 2. Alright, where I will continue where we left off from. Okay, so this is the next slide, continuation of the previous video. We're going to go right into it, alright? Now, the United States is a corporation, it's a company. It's no different than McDonald's or Wendy's, okay? And like I said before in the previous video, if you want a source where you can go read for yourself and see with your own two eyes, the document is called the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. I repeat, District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. And if you don't realize what the District of Columbia is, that's why they call Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C., Washington District of Columbia. Okay, which is the seat of government for the United States de facto. Okay, so let's continue with the slide here. In corporations, assets are valued for their ability to turn a profit or to be used as collateral for the acquisition of monies through the mechanism of borrowing. When said asset becomes a liability, non-productive, it is cast off to prevent any losses from the entity's capital strength. Are you aware in 1871 the USA ceased being a republic of, by, and for the people, and instead became a corporation, wholly owned by private entities and corporations, aka international bankers, and you and I became the proverbial assets. Now think again, what happens to an asset that is no longer productive? They get rid of it. This explains so much of the tyranny we're seeing. Alright, so America literally was pulled out from under the watch of the American people. And if you trace back the definition of the original term of American, okay, you can go as far as back as the 1836 Webster's Dictionary. You see for yourself that the American people are the original various copper-colored people, okay, that were founded by the Europeans, aka Columbus. And if you're not aware what copper color is, all you need to do is look at a penny. And if you didn't realize, there's a reason why they put Abraham Lincoln's face on that copper-colored penny. Alright? You figure it out on your own. Let's continue. Now, one vital thing we're going to have to understand as a nation and as a people is that this right here, alright, which is called the Naturalization Act. This right here is what set us up to be hoodwinked into giving up our birthright, okay, for second-class citizenship. Alright, so let's go on. Now that the children of former slaves were automatically granted citizenship status in the United States, an important question remained unanswered. What about their parents and other immigrants? Following the passage of the 13th Amendment in 1865, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment conferred citizenship on the formerly enslaved. Congress passed the Naturalization Act of 1870, while the 1870 Act ushered in a right for blacks to naturalize. And to make it real simple, when you see the term naturalize, just think of adoption. Alright? And a right for blacks to be adopted, okay, aka naturalized. Overall, the act held only limited promise of equality in the United States. It provided only for the naturalization, adoption of whites and persons of African descent, and continued to exclude Asians and Native Americans from citizenship. Moreover, the law became symbolic for blacks as their claims to legal citizenship were seemingly trumped by social and political subordination and physical backlash. Now let's try to break down and understand what took place here with this Naturalization Act. So what's being said here, just by the fact that this act exists, is that when the United States was created, it wasn't created for the intention or for the welfare of Africans. Obviously, why would there have to be a Naturalization Act created years after, a year or so afterwards, if we were already intended to be a part of the United States? You see what I'm saying? So that means that they passed acts over time to pretty much allow different nations of people to be allowed to be citizens. However, what the people didn't know, by not getting full disclosure, is that by accepting the second-class citizenship, they were relinquishing their birthrights because we are indigenous to the land. Okay, so if we're home with our biological parents, all right, and we have a conscious choice between our biological parents and adopted parents, you're naturally going to go with your biological parents because that's just what your genes and your entire existence will flow to, because that's where you emanate from. That's where the source is at. Now, seeing how we accept the second-class citizenship, we lost our birthrights because we're now dishonoring our parents, because rather than going with the biological parents, we went with the adopted parents, okay? And the adopted parents can never offer us what the biological parents can offer us, okay? And when I'm saying, I'm not talking about material shit like money, okay? It's something more, it's something larger than that. It's your heritage, it's your history, okay? The rights you have on the soil that you stand on. All right, you can't put money, you can't put a price of money on that. So just to make the picture a little bit more clear, this is what the Naturalization Act of 1870 did to us, okay? It allowed for the United States, which we, these two, this couple right here, okay? The 1870 Act allowed for Africans to be adopted into the United States. Okay? That's what happened. So this was not naturally intended for the United States. The United States was made just for this couple here and its descendants accordingly. Right. Next slide. Now, let's talk about this 13th Amendment, okay? Now, if you look in the Constitution today, you'll only see about 2 sections within the 13th Amendment, but if you do deeper research, you'll find out that 18 amendments were removed out of that. 18 sections were removed out of that amendment. One of those sections, there's a reason why they took out 18 of those sections, first and foremost. Okay, and one of those sections which is very vital to you understanding who you are and who you are not. Right? So let's look at Section 12 of the 13th Amendment. Okay? The traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Let me repeat that one more time. The traffic in slaves with Africa means the traffic in slaves, slave trade, slavery, enslavement, is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. So why are we over here supporting these, talking about U.S. citizenship? Now, I'm just here to break the spell, y'all. I'm here to break the spell. I'm here to wake y'all up. Maybe some of y'all are getting ready to wake up. Maybe some of y'all have no intention of waking up. Maybe some of y'all just needed that one extra push to start waking up. Now, the United States of America, which is a corporation, is not a democracy. Alright? No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The United States democracy is a corporation. It became incorporated after it dissolved the republic. But once you dissolve yourself from the republic, you automatically make yourself default because the Constitution still stands. In order for an amendment to be made to the Constitution, there has to be a constitutional convention held, all right, where all the states decide on the amendments made to it. So that was never done. So the Constitution from 1791 still stands today as the organic Constitution for the United States Republic of North America. All right. Now, this is the U.S. Constitution for the corporation known as the United States after 1871. Even so, you hear all these congressmen or people, political people in office talking about democracy. All right. Let's be very straight here. U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion and on the application of the legislature or of the executive against domestic violence. So seeing how it's guaranteed, right? Guaranteed a republican form of government. And just to make it more clear, recite the Pledge of Allegiance to yourself. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, right? And to the republic. Where you hear democracy in it? And to the democracy? No, that wasn't it. It definitely wasn't it. Definitely wasn't it. It was to the republic. Now, let's go into what a republic is, all right? Republic is a commonwealth. Now, a commonwealth is a form of government which derives all its powers directly or indirectly from the general body of citizens, and in which the executive power is lodged in officers chosen by and representing the people, in holding office for a limited period or at most during good behavior or at the pleasure of the people. Alright, so a republic is a form of government which derives all its powers directly or indirectly from the general body of citizens. The general body of people, meaning what? There's no difference between people. Every person stands on their own ground. Everyone is a king, all right? Everyone is a god. Every woman is a goddess in their own right. No one stands above each other. That's the point of a republic. Everyone's equal. Okay? No one is above the law. No one is above the law. Now, a democracy, and we ran over this before, demon, Rossi, excuse my spelling, I definitely forgot the C in that one, democracy. Well, you get the idea, alright? Which is a society run by demons. That's what a democracy is. Okay? It's a whole sham. Alright, so let's go into it. That form of government in which the sovereign power resides in and is exercised by the whole body of free citizens. So the difference between democracy and republic, see, in a republic, it made a statement towards the general body of citizens. This is where the government derives its power. Now in a democracy, that government derives its power from the whole body of free citizens. So it's making a difference between free citizens and citizens. Therefore, letting us know that slavery is still taking place within a democracy system. All right, so therefore no one is equal. No one is equally royal. All right, meaning some are free and some are slaves. That's what you pay your tax dollars to go towards, a society run by demons. And that's why we've been suffering for all these years. So, 14th Amendment. We as a people have to become very, 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 very familiar with what the 14th Amendment is and what it implies. All right, and pretty much who it applies to. Okay, so let's go. Let's read it. 14th Amendment to the Constitution. All persons born or naturalized, aka adopted, in the United States. So let's break down the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, all right, naturalized meaning adopted, in the United States, which is a corporation, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So subject, meaning you're in subjugation, meaning someone has higher authority than you, besides your creator, right? Now, jurisdiction, let's break down the etymology of the word jurisdiction. Now, juris means law, okay? Law or right. And diction means to speak. So, by being a 14th Amendment citizen, you agreed to be subject to the spoken law, or the right to spoken law, aka jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So that lets you know right there that all the states of the United States are corporations as well. Okay, the United States is the parent, and the states are the children. And the human beings who are acting as minorities, as children, as wards of the state, in the capacity of 14th Amendment citizens, will be considered the grandchildren, or the slave workers, or the cattle, or the chattel, property, all right, of Rome, which is what the United States is, okay? Now, let's continue on. States, let's just start from the beginning so we can get a clear understanding. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Okay? Now let's understand one thing here. What this 14th Amendment implies to second-class citizenship, because once again, Columbus discovered that there were African people on the land already established. So the only way to be citizens of the United States is to be adopted in. And if we're adopted in, that means we're giving up the natural rights that we had prior. Okay? So let's continue on. Now, there's plenty of Supreme Court case law that backs up exactly what I'm telling you today. And I'm leaving you the references here so you can see for yourself and research them for yourself and prove me wrong. or prove me right. All right? All courts in this state and every other state of the Union operate under the Clearfield Doctrine. From the case of Clearfield Trust Company versus U.S. 318, U.S. 363 to 371. All right, this case took place in 1943. This case explains the Clearfield Doctrine as this: governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and takes on the character of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, aka Federal Reserve notes, aka what we know today as dollars, are concerned for purposes of suit. Now, you know, every time you get pulled over by a cop and they give you a ticket, or a parking ticket, or a speeding ticket, or they try to summon someone to court, all that is lawsuits. That's somebody suing you. That's why it's always the state versus the state versus the defendant, blah 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 blah. All right, you're being sued. You're being sued every time. You park your car, you go outside, you ready to go. You see a ticket on your car. You just got a lawsuit. Somebody just gave you a suit because they're under the impression that you're within their jurisdiction. All right, they have a right to speak when it comes to the law for your circumstances. All right, so it's letting you know that when it comes to the suits and using these Federal Reserve notes, which is fiat, which is fake money, in these suits, that the state who's versing the person, or so-called defendant, all right, descends to the level of a mere private corporation and takes on the character of a mere private citizen. Nothing special. So they don't have no governmental supremacy power. They are a joke. And if you don't take them as a joke and you take them seriously, then guess what? You give them power, because your word is your bond. Your word is power. So whatever you speak will happen. So if you think that that person sitting in a black robe is a judge, then you just gave him his office. If you think that person who pulls you over illegally and unlawfully while you're traveling in your car, not hurting anyone, is an officer of the law, then you just appointed him as an officer, or her as an officer. They're not going to argue with you if you appoint him office. They're going to act accordingly, all right? So you gotta understand, these things are corporations. They're all corporations. They're all corporations. They're corpses, meaning they're all dead entities. They don't exist except within your mind if you allow them to creep in, just like a bad thought. Let's continue. Now this right here, I'm going to wrap up with this slide, part 2, and we'll continue on with the series in the next video in part 3. So let's wrap up with this right here. This right here is the congressional record, all right, of March 17th, 1993, all right, by Representative James Traficant Jr., all right, he's representative from Ohio. So let's understand what's being said here. He's on the floor now of the House, all right? He's speaking to the members of the Congress, all right? And this is what they're talking about right now. So let me paint a scenario for you. The Civil War has just ended, all right? They're in council now, and they're trying to recuperate, all right? They're trying to raise some type of funds so that they can act in some form of order, all right? But they just spent all their money on war. They're completely trashed on resources. All right. So let's hear what they have to speak about on the floor. Mr. Speaker, we are now here in Chapter 11. Members of Congress, and Chapter 11 is bankruptcy. All right. Chapter 11, bankruptcy. We are now here in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. So out of the mouth of Representative James Traficant Jr., letting you know that the United States is a bankrupt. Okay? Not only is it bankrupt, but they're attempting the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history. Okay? We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. Now, if anyone knows anything about trust law, you know that trustees, okay, are people who are placed with the responsibility of holding assets for the beneficiaries until the beneficiaries are ready to claim their assets for themselves. All right, so trustees don't own the assets, they're just holding the assets for the actual heirs of the estate. So they're letting you know that the members of Congress are trustees. Okay? Next paragraph. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act of March 9th, 1933, 48 State 1 Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt. I'm giving you sources, all right? Don't take my word for it. Being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June 5th, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States, and the official capacities of all United States government offices. All right, because they no longer were using gold and silver as a standard of money. They were started using monopoly money, or what we have today, which is debt paper or legal tender or fiat. Alright. The United States and the official capacities of all United States government officers and departments, and is further evidence that the United States government exists today in name only. Let me repeat that part again. The United States government exists today in name only. It's a figment of your imagination. They don't exist. They're not real. Welcome to the Matrix. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy, that'll be my phone. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All the United States offices, officials, and departments are operating within a de facto illegal status, in name only, under emergency war powers. With the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is called a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. All right? The United States exists in name only. So if you give them power, they're going to happily accept your offer. All right? So this will wrap it up for video number 2 on the Math and Science of Slavery series. All right, peace, family. See you next time.